My mom hid my passport before my flight to a job interview abroad, then she said, "Your sister deserves this chance more than you do." "Where's my passport?" I asked, standing in the living room with my suitcase zipped and ready by the door. My mom didn't look up from her show. "Callie's going to France," she said, like that answered anything. "What does that have to do with my passport?" She looked at me then. "Your sister deserves this chance more than you do." That was the moment I realized my mother would always choose my sister, no matter what it cost me. I 33 female was 28 when this happened, living in my childhood home in Fresno, California. I'd moved back temporarily after my lease in Sacramento ended, intending to regroup for a few months while applying to international jobs. I'd just landed an interview with a major logistics company in Amsterdam. They were flying me out for a final round, and I was proud, excited, terrified, but above all, ready. I had done everything right. After college, I worked nonstop, built my resume, and maintained financial independence. I was the reliable daughter. The one who never got into trouble, never caused a scene. My younger sister Callie, 25 female at the time, was the opposite, emotional, inconsistent, struggling with anxiety that often became the centerpiece of our household. My mom, Clarabelle, always justified the imbalance. "Callie needs more support. You're stronger. You'll be fine." That line became a mantra, and I lived under its weight for years. But I'd finally gotten out once before, when I moved to Sacramento. And now, I had a chance to leave the country altogether. Amsterdam wasn't just a job. It was a fresh start. A chance to live a life that was mine. I'd told them about the interview 5 days before the flight. I had waited on purpose. Long enough that they couldn't really interfere. Or so I thought. My mom barely reacted. No hug. No congratulations. Just a long sigh and a reminder that I'd be leaving everything behind. Callie looked like I told her she was being abandoned. She didn't say anything directly at first, but over the next few days, she grew quieter. She left her dishes out. Stopped going to her art classes. Once, I heard her crying behind her door. I didn't go in. I knew that routine. The emotional weight she could drop on the house like a fog. And how Clarabelle would bend to it. Still, I tried to be sensitive. I brought home pastries. I offered to video call from the Netherlands. I even said they could visit me once I got settled. But there was no gratitude. Just silence. The night before my flight, I was exhausted but wired with nerves. I triple-checked my suitcase. I had laid out my clothes, printed my itinerary, and packed my passport in the inner flap of my carry-on bag. At least, I thought I had. I left the room to grab a snack. Came back. Gone. At first, I thought maybe I'd misplaced it. That frantic kind of disbelief that has you pulling drawers out and dumping bags upside down. I checked my closet. Under my mattress. I even searched the trash. My heart sank lower with every second. Around 11 p.m., I finally asked. Clarabelle was in the living room, feet up, watching a rerun of NCIS. "Mom. Have you seen my passport?" She muted the TV but didn't answer right away. Then, without turning her head, she said, "Callie's teacher reached out this week. Her old professor from Fresno State. He's running an art residency in France. There's a spot open. Last minute. We had to act fast." I stared at her. "What does that have to do with my passport?" She looked me in the eye. "Your sister deserves this more than you do." The floor might as well have fallen out from under me. I couldn't even yell. I was too stunned. I asked again, softly this time, where it was. She just said, "She needs this. You'll be fine. You always are." It was surreal. Like something from a movie, except I wasn't watching it, I was in it. I felt like a child again. Not because of what she said, but because of how quickly I'd been dismissed. It was like nothing I had done up until that moment mattered. Not the degree. Not the years of grinding. Not the kindness, the restraint, the constant being the bigger person. I went upstairs and knocked on Callie's door. She didn't answer at first, but eventually opened it with puffy eyes. She didn't even try to lie. Just said, "I didn't want to upset you. I asked for the passport." She looked like she might say no. Then she handed it over, no apology, no explanation. Just tears. But it was already too late. My flight was in 6 hours. There was no way to make it to LAX and get through security in time. I sat in my car, parked in front of a 24-hour gas station, staring at the cracked windshield and wondering what the hell I was doing. I thought about giving up. Just letting it go. Calling the company, telling them I couldn't make it, finding a job locally, and falling back into the role I'd always played. But something in me hardened. I drove to my cousin Inessa's place in Clovis and stayed there. Called the airline. Explained the situation, leaving out the drama. Then I called the company in Amsterdam, praying they wouldn't withdraw the offer to fly me out. They were understanding. Said they could rebook in 3 days, but I'd have to cover the cost this time. I agreed. I was too angry to sleep that night. But I wasn't scared anymore. That next morning, I filed a police report, not because I intended to get my mom arrested, but because I wanted documentation. In case I ever needed to show proof that my passport had been stolen, even temporarily. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming control. I didn't tell my mom where I was. She sent one text, "Come home. Don't ruin this for your sister. She needs it." I didn't reply. When I boarded that plane 3 days later, it was with the heaviest heart I'd ever carried, but I also felt more mine than I'd ever been. The first few hours on the plane felt like I was still stuck back in Fresno. My body was moving forward, but my mind was clawing at everything I had just left behind. The suitcase with my travel essentials felt like armor, but inside I felt bare. I kept replaying the moment over and over, the look in my mother's eyes, calm and unmoved, as she told me I didn't deserve the chance I'd worked so hard for. That flight to Amsterdam was 11 hours, but it could have been 30. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I stared out the window and quietly unraveled. When I landed, I felt like an imposter, still shaking from the emotional whiplash of the past few days, wondering if I even had it in me to perform in an interview. But I had come this far. I cleaned up in an airport bathroom, fixed my makeup, changed into a blazer, and stared at my own face in the mirror until I believed I looked like someone capable. I nailed the interview. Or at least, I think I did. I don't remember what I said. I just remember that when I walked out of the building, past the canals and the bikes and the little cafes with people sipping coffee like life wasn't a puzzle, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. 2 weeks later, I got the offer. The salary wasn't staggering, but the position was permanent and came with relocation support. I said yes without hesitating. The company helped with the visa process, and I was given a start date 4 months out. When I told Clarabelle, she just said, "That's a long way from home." I told her I'd be fine. She didn't offer congratulations. She didn't ask to help me pack. She didn't even pretend to be happy for me. Callie didn't say much either. Just good luck. No mention of the passport. No real attempt at an apology. By then, I wasn't expecting one. During those next 4 months, I stayed with Ines most of the time. I only visited the house to grab the last of my things, old journals, family photos, and some storage boxes I'd left behind after college. I didn't linger. I didn't hug anyone goodbye. I boarded my one-way flight with a single checked bag and the numb certainty that my mother had chosen her side. Amsterdam was cold and gray when I arrived in October. I remember standing at the tram stop with my new work badge hanging from my coat, wondering how to navigate everything: the city, the language, the weight of betrayal I had carried across an ocean. But slowly, life began to take root. I got a small flat near Vondelpark, nothing fancy, just a studio with squeaky floors and a noisy radiator. My colleagues were kind. The work was challenging but fair. I started biking everywhere. I found comfort in anonymity, in not being someone's daughter or someone's older sister. Just Marissa. And for the first time in my life, I could hear my own thoughts without someone else crying in the next room or asking me to cancel plans because Callie's having a bad day. I didn't block my family completely, but I created distance. I muted their group chat. I stopped reacting to guilt-laced texts. And when Clarabelle sent me a Christmas card with just her name and the words "We miss you," I didn't send one back. The space helped me start unpacking things I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. Like how, for years, I hadn't pursued international roles because I knew it would be seen as abandonment. Or how every decision I made had been weighed down by a sense of responsibility to someone who didn't actually want to grow, just wanted to be kept. I went to therapy. Dutch therapy is very practical, by the way. My therapist told me in our third session, "You're allowed to walk away from people who weaponize love." That hit me hard. Meanwhile, back home, things shifted. Ines told me that Callie never ended up going to France. The art residency didn't accept late entries. The slot had already been filled when they contacted the school. The whole thing had been built on a hope and a lie. Clarabelle never told me that. She let me believe my interview had been traded for something real. Something worthwhile. It hadn't. After that, I stopped responding to most of their messages. I wasn't being cruel, I just didn't have the energy to perform forgiveness anymore. It was a full-time job pretending I wasn't still hurt. And I already had a new full-time job. Still, I checked in every now and then. Just short emails to say I was alive. I never got much back beyond passive-aggressive notes or forwarded articles about staying connected as a family. 2 years passed like that. At that time, I met someone. His name is Lars, and he's Dutch-Indonesian. Quiet, thoughtful, and never makes me feel like I need to be on all the time. We started slow, as friends, then more. He doesn't know the full story yet, but he knows I left for more than just a job. One Sunday morning, I got an email from Callie. It was short. Said mom had been diagnosed with lymphoma, stage I, they caught it early. She was undergoing treatment. Callie said she was overwhelmed. That she missed me. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't care. But because I didn't know what role I was supposed to step back into. I had been the fixer for so long. The one who dropped everything. The one who held the emotional scaffolding together. But I wasn't sure I could be that person anymore. That's where I'm at now. Living a life I built from scratch. On another continent. With more distance than I ever thought I'd have from my family. And for the first time, I'm not sure what I owe them, if anything. Should I visit? Should I reach back out? Or should I let things stay broken? A few weeks after Callie's email about mom's diagnosis, I found myself rereading it during my lunch breaks. Not because the content changed, but because something in me was trying to decode the tone, the subtext, the why now. The email had no subject line. Just, "Mom's sick." It's not advanced, but it's real. She starts chemo soon. I know you're angry. I get it. But I'm scared. She's scared too. I don't know what I'm doing. That was it. No dramatic plea. No apology. Just rawness. I waited 2 full weeks before responding. Not because I was playing games, but because I needed to separate guilt from love. I had grown so used to being emotionally manipulated that even honesty looked suspicious. I wasn't sure if Callie was reaching out because she genuinely wanted me to know, or because she needed a backup plan now that things were getting real. My reply was brief. I'm sorry to hear about mom. I hope her treatment goes well. I'll be in touch when I've had time to process this. I didn't lie. I was sorry. Not in a way that would make me buy a last-minute flight, but in the way you mourn an idea, the idea of what a mother is supposed to be. That email opened the door to a slow, uneven correspondence with Callie. She started sending occasional updates, doctor's appointments, treatment reactions, even a photo of Mom's hospital room, sunlight pouring through the blinds, and 4 stand in the corner, and a vase of plastic flowers on the windowsill. I didn't respond to everything. But I read every word. I was trying to make peace with a new version of reality, that my mother might be ill, that my sister might be telling the truth, and that I wasn't obligated to re-enter the fire just because I saw smoke. Meanwhile, life in Amsterdam continued, steady, slow, calm. I had carved out rituals that grounded me: Saturday morning walks to the flower market, Sunday afternoons biking to the library, weekday coffees at the quiet cafe tucked behind my office building where they knew my order and never asked about my accent. Lars and I grew closer, not in a whirlwind romance sort of way, but like two people discovering they'd been speaking the same language all along, just in silence. He noticed my silence. He didn't try to fill them, but he made space for them. One night, curled under a blanket on his sofa, I told him the full story. About the passport. About the interview. About the betrayal that still echoed in me like a fire alarm that never turned off. He listened. Really listened. Then he said something simple: "You don't need to feel bad for being the one who got out." That stayed with me. Because I did feel bad. Not guilty, exactly. Just hollow. Like there was always going to be a hole in me shaped like a family that never fully loved me right. Months passed. Then, unexpectedly, I got an email from Clarabelle herself. Subject: Update. I opened it with the same apprehension I might open a letter from the IRS or an ex I never quite got over. "Marissa, I'm writing this myself. Callie has been doing everything. I don't blame you for leaving. I want to say that. I was angry and scared when you told us you were going. I thought you'd never come back. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I tried to keep you small so I wouldn't lose you. That was wrong. I want to see you, but only if you want to. I understand if you don't. I miss you every day. Mom." No defense. No dramatics. Just that. It took me hours to feel anything at all. My hands shook, but not from rage this time. It was like something cold inside me was trying to melt and didn't know how. I didn't respond right away. I needed to sit with it. I printed it out. Read it on paper like a letter. Folded it, then unfolded it. Left it on the kitchen table for a week, like it might age into something clearer. Callie followed up a few days later. "She's been softer lately. Less controlling. The diagnosis changed her. I don't know if it's permanent, but she talks about you a lot." I told Lars I wasn't sure what to do. He offered to fly with me if I wanted to visit. Or not. He said, "You're allowed to not want this, too." The idea of returning to Fresno felt like time travel. Like I'd get off that plane and become the old Marissa again, the one who tucked herself in around other people's needs. Who swallowed dreams because they made others feel insecure. Who never asked for space because space was called selfish. But curiosity started pulling at me. Not the kind of curiosity that said maybe they've changed, but the kind that said maybe I've changed enough to handle seeing them again. I didn't make a decision right away. Instead, I started small. I asked Clarabelle how her treatments were going. She told me in detail, sending photos of her scarf-covered head, her tea setup, her bed with a new quilt Callie had sewn. I responded with questions. She didn't overreach. This went on for a few weeks. Then she asked if I'd consider coming back, even for a weekend. No pressure. Just a visit. Just a maybe. And that's where I found myself caught between two worlds. In Amsterdam, I had rebuilt from ashes. A new home. A new love. A version of myself that I didn't hate when I looked in the mirror. Back in Fresno was the wreckage, and the people who caused it. But also, maybe, a door. And I didn't know yet if I wanted to open it. After weeks of weighing it all in my head, I booked the flight back to California. Round trip. No commitment. Just 4 days. I didn't tell them the dates until I was already at Schiphol Airport. I landed in Fresno on a Thursday afternoon in early May, 5 years almost to the day since my mother stole my passport. I remember stepping out into the dry heat and how instantly my lungs felt like they were shrinking. Fresno air does that. Feels like the past is hiding in it. Callie picked me up. She looked different, tired, thinner, hair dyed a muted copper red that made her look older than 30. She smiled nervously but didn't reach out for a hug. I appreciated that. I cleaned the guest room, she said as we drove. Mom's mostly resting these days. Thanks, I replied. It felt like we were strangers again, and maybe we were. But that was okay. Clarabelle was in the living room when I walked in. Wrapped in a faded blue shawl, her skin pale and drawn, but her eyes alert. Sharper than I expected. She didn't cry. She didn't stand up. She just said, "Hi, baby." And I nodded. "Hi, Mom." We didn't hug until later that night. I found her in the kitchen making tea, hands trembling just slightly as she lifted the kettle. She leaned into me, just a little, and I let her. The next couple of days passed slowly. We had a polite conversation. She told me about her treatments. About how Callie was managing everything. About how she had started to see a therapist through the hospital. I stayed mostly quiet, observing, listening. On the third day, Callie had to step out for groceries. It was the first time I'd been alone with Mom since arriving. I sat down across from her in the living room. "You know," I said carefully, "I used to think that leaving was selfish." Clarabelle looked up from her tea. "I know. But it wasn't," I continued. "Staying would have been. For me. Because it would have meant betraying myself over and over." She nodded slowly. "You're not wrong." There was a long silence. Then she said, "I was so afraid of losing you that I crushed you." I see that now. I didn't offer her comfort. I let the weight of her words hang there. Then, I stood up and said, "Good. Because you did lose me." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up on the porch, watching the same moon I used to stare at when I was 16, dreaming of escape. It feels different now. Smaller. In the morning, over eggs and weak coffee, I dropped the explosive. "I'm moving Callie to Amsterdam." Clarabelle blinked. "What?" I smiled calmly. "She's coming with me. Not to live with me, God, no. But to study. There's a grant. For mental health recovery programs tied to creative development. I spoke to someone I know at my company's foundation. They'll fund it. Tuition and housing." Callie looked at me, stunned. "You're serious?" I nodded. "If you want it. You can do it. But it means no more hiding behind Mom. You'll be accountable. You'll be on your own." Clarabelle opened her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. "She'll be closer to me than you." "How does that feel?" I asked, softly, but pointed. She said nothing. This wasn't about kindness. It was strategic. Poetic. Because years ago, she used my passport, my future, as currency for a fantasy that never even happened. Now I was offering Callie a real shot. A real passport. A real door. But it was my hand on the handle. "I can't just leave her now," Callie said, clearly unsure. "You could have gone to France," I replied flatly. "Remember? That was worth my whole career, apparently." The room went silent. No one looked at each other. I finished my coffee and stood up. "I fly out tomorrow." "Think about it." I didn't expect her to take the offer. I truly didn't. But the day after I landed back in Amsterdam, Callie texted, "I'm in. Tell me what I need to do." And that was how the balance shifted. I helped her with the paperwork, the visa, and the prep classes. She arrived 6 months later, wide-eyed and quiet, living in a modest student apartment not far from my neighborhood. We met once a week for coffee. Sometimes she vented, sometimes she said nothing. But she was growing. On her own terms. Finally, and Clarabelle? She called less and less. I didn't chase. She knew I had set the terms now. A few months later, Callie told me that Mom had asked if she could come visit. Callie said no. She has to live with her choices, she told me. I nodded. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cruel. It was balanced. That was revenge, not rage or shouting or cutting people off forever. But boundaries. Independence. Success. Watching someone lose the power they once torment. Clarabelle had tried to trap me in Fresno, tie my life down with guilt and obligation. But I left. And in the end, I wasn't the one who came back to her. She's the one who lost both daughters to the world. And I don't feel bad about it.